opening theaters, and it's written and directed by Damien Chazelle and stars Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Diego Calva. And it is a tale of outsized ambition and outrageous excess, tracing the rise and fall of multiple characters during an era of unbridled decadence and depravity in early Hollywood, from silent film stars transitioning to talkies. Anytime there's a movie about the art of filmmaking or about movies themselves, I'm totally there. I actually did see The Fabelmans a couple weeks ago, and I didn't get around to reviewing it. I really, really loved The Fabelmans because it was about somebody who grew up liking film, grew up wanting to be a filmmaker, and so that spoke to me, even if Spielberg did make it feel a bit self-indulgent at times. I still love The Fabelmans, so I was really looking forward to a movie like Babylon from a director like Damien Chazelle, who has directed 2 fantastic movies with Whiplash, La La Land. I could give or take First Man. So I was really interested to see what he was going to do with Babylon and how he was going to essentially make a love letter to the classic era of Hollywood. And that's really what Babylon is to an extent. He takes a lot of swings, many misses with those swings, and I'll get into more of that in a little bit, but he crafts a movie with gargantuan ambitions. And from afar, I can't help but admire that. Like I said, it's a love letter to the old ways of making movies. Things like how actors were locked into studio contracts back in the 20s and the 30s is brought up in this movie. How fame can get to somebody's head, how a waning career can get to somebody's head, how that transition from one type of film to this new technology can also really affect somebody's career, like Brad Pitt's character in this movie, which I thought that his character and the character of Manny, played by Diego Calva, who steals every scene he's in, I thought their character arcs were phenomenal. I thought Margot Robbie gave a great performance in this movie. I thought Brad Pitt was on his A game. Diego Calva, as I already said, was the scene stealer. It's just those 2 characters spoke to me more than Margot Robbie's character, who I felt like made some terrible decisions towards the second half of this movie. And because of that, I didn't really latch on to caring all that much about her character. But this movie does capture the glitz and glamour and the debauchery of the 1920s. Everything you've read about in The Great Gatsby, the Roaring 20s, that's essentially just having crazy, insane Hollywood parties full of like fucking orgies or something. Like this movie essentially showcases is what I expect a lot of those Hollywood parties in the 20s to be like. It was the Roaring 20s. Everybody was hip and happy and all that shit. Linus Sandgren's cinematography is immaculate. I loved a lot of the tracking shots, a lot of sweeping shots, shots where you just had everything in plain view. Like there's scenes towards the beginning of the movie where these characters are making a movie, like a big war epic. The cinematography in those scenes, trying to film everybody in those scenes, was, I thought, top-notch cinematography of the year. Impeccably edited by Tom Cross as well. I love that he edited a lot of the movements of all the characters to the beat of the music, especially in those scenes where they're supposed to be filming a silent film and the music's playing and you see Margot Robbie dancing and like drums are going off, and as like the drum beat is happening, she's moving her feet to the drum beat. I love that. I thought that was a really cool and unique way to edit a movie. My problem with Babylon relies mostly in its screenplay. Yeah, I mean, this is where I feel like I'm going to get a little bit more mixed on the movie itself. I think Chazelle does a great job directing this movie. It's just his writing for the movie isn't as solid as the movie thinks it is. Therefore, the movie comes across a little bit as pretentious. Immediate comparisons I can make for this movie are The Wolf of Wall Street meets Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meets The Great Gatsby. I've mentioned Gatsby already a little bit in this review, but seriously, that's what it felt like. And it felt like to me that Chazelle was jealous that he didn't get to create those types of movies. And he was just saying, well, here's what I would do if I were making those types of movies, okay? Yeah, you think those movies are good. This is better. It's almost like that period in time where people were being interviewed about Star Wars and the influence it had on them, and then James Cameron comes in and says, well, George Lucas did it first. That's what it felt like. It felt a little like self-indulgence and pretentious to me at times. And I feel like the structure of the movie is a little rocky, honestly. The first hour of the movie is rocky, but you're kind of getting into the swing of things, like you're trying to learn about these characters, so It is a little bit rocky, but it's still a fun hour. The second hour is where I thought we had some of the best cinema all year. I was exhilarated by those scenes. There's a scene involving Margot Robbie on a soundstage trying to act in a talkie picture that I thought was really riveting. Some of my favorite scenes in any movie I've seen this year. And then the third hour completely loses me. Like, what the fuck was that? The last 45 minutes of this movie are just batshit insanity that don't belong here. The fact that this was stretched out to a 3-hour and 9-minute runtime, that entire last 45 minutes could be cut. That should have been left on the cutting room floor. It feels like essentially a different movie. It doesn't feel like you're in the same world that these characters were inhabiting before. It all of a sudden feels like you're just transported to this side excursion involving Tobey Maguire, who again, his scenes could have just been cut and the movie would have been no different. It felt like a completely different type of film. It felt like we were getting into gangster movie territory. It all of a sudden became this dark, gritty thriller that I didn't expect the movie to become. And that last section of the movie, that last 45 minutes to hour or so, were my least favorite part because of that. It just feels so detached from the narrative already and the story that's being told that it feels like it's some completely different entity. It feels like Chazelle was trying to write two movies in one in that regard. So yeah, Babylon is well made. It's well acted. I liked a lot of the characters, but it does feel a bit pretentious at times. And there's times where this movie just completely goes on side excursions that don't even have to happen in this movie. I get that they're trying to portray the glitz and the glamour and all the debauchery that actors of this era were partaking in and went through, but her character was just making stupid decisions after a while. And that's really what lost me with Margot Robbie's character. Babylon was a bit of a disappointment, I will say that. I was hoping that this would be one of my favorites of the year, and unfortunately it wasn't. I will say I still enjoyed Babylon with just over half a bucket of popcorn. It's still a solid movie, but there's way too much wrong with it for me from a narrative standpoint, screenplay standpoint, and just a structure standpoint that really keeps it from being great, and just that over-reliance on Chazelle's own mind, just thinking that it's genius at work here. And he is a great director, but much of this movie felt like it was him diving too far into his own psyche. So if you have seen Babylon, I want to know what you thought of it. Drop me some feedback in the comment section below. I will leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.